This Maimer also is a continuation of the Basilagani Maimer that for the year of Tafshin Memhei, which has to do with the 15th chapter, but even though it continues and mentions things having to do with that, it stands on its own and one doesn't have to know what that other Maimer was about. Okay, let's begin. Leil Chamish B'Shvat, Tafshin Memhei. It was the night going into the 15th of Shvat, Tafshin Memhei. Arba Rosh Hashanah. There are 4 times a year that are called Rosh Hashanah. We know there's the Rosh Hashanah of Tishrei, there's the Rosh Hashanah of Nisan, it's called also Rosh Hashanah for kings, it says. There's a different Rosh Hashanah at the beginning of El for other calculations. And then Rosh Hashanah Ilon Chulu. When is the new year for the trees? So this is actually a machloikis, it's a dispute. Basil says in the 15th of Shvat. Beit Shammai disagrees, they say it's on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. It's known. The examination of this from Arabim and Nisim in Chudei Torah of the Alter Rebbe, Bateres Roish, and in the Sefer called Ateres Roish of the Mittler Rebbe, which is primarily speaks about Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the Yom Tovim of Tishrei, Ubedrushim Shala Achriza, and a Mamorim following the Mamorim of the Alter Rebbe in Chudei Torah and the Mittler Rebbe and Ateres Roish. B'Toyar Rosh Hashanah. In the name, the description called Rosh Hashanah. Why is something called Rosh Hashanah? This description, Lashon Kodesh, is an exact description that they use the term Rosh Hashanah. Why they call it head of the year, and they don't call it the beginning of the year, because since Lashon Kodesh is a very exact language, and every name in Lashon Kodesh has a meaning to it. So if the Yom Tov is called the Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, not the beginning of the year, it has significance. It's explained concerning this, the fact that it's called the head and not the beginning, which seems to be the more, should have been the more exact term that should be used for the beginning of the year. So he says, because this day, Rosh Hashanah, the day of Rosh Hashanah, Valderech Rosh Chodesh, in a similar vein, we have the term Rosh Chodesh, not Chilas HaChodesh, not the beginning of the month, but the head of the month. Ein Rak Chilas Hashanah, by Rosh Hashanah, it means it's not just the beginning of the year, because if that's all it was, then they would call it Chilas Hashanah. Rather, it's like the head of the body of a person. What does the head function as? First of all, initially, before all the life energy expresses itself and comes out to all the different limbs, it includes in it all the life force of all the different limbs and organs. Even when the life force of all the limbs, even when the vitality of all the limbs leaves and expands and expresses itself outward from the brain, from the head, into the different limbs and organs. So the brain still exacts an influence over it. The running of all the limbs and organs, through the brain and the mind, the intellect is in the head. So just like the relationship of the physical head with the rest of the body that has these 2 components, it includes all the energy of the entire body. And in addition, it also runs every part of the body. So the same thing, the Chenu Gam Kol Rosh Hashanah Bedal Rosh Hashanah Hamenuim B'Mishnah. So too, it's also every Rosh Hashanah of the 4 Rosh Hashanah that's enumerated in the Mishnah. Aleph B'Nisan, the first of Nisan, is a Rosh Hashanah for kings, it says. V'Aleph B'Tishrei, the first of Tishrei, is a Rosh Hashanah for the years. We count the years from the first of Tishrei. V'Chavtas El, and the 29th of El, has to do with Rosh Hashanah for certain agricultural things. V'Tesva B'Shvat, and the 15th of Shvat is the Rosh Hashanah, as we know, for the for the trees. That each one of them is an idea of a rosh, of a head, in regards to all the matters of the year, that concerning whatever that it is a rosh for, he is the head for it. The matters of the entire year, in regards to, let's say, the tree, are dependent on that first day called Rosh Hashanah Lilanis Mishum Shem Klulim Boy. First of all, because the rest of the year's life having to do with trees are included in that day. And from the Rosh, it comes down in it in all the rest of the days of the year. And even then, even once it comes down into the rest of the days of the year, they are still run by munhagim al pi ha'achlata v'kiyotz b'zeh shebarashon. They are also still led and directed by the decision and resolution, etc., came out that took place on Rosh Hashanah. Moving, it's understood. This thing that expands and spreads out to all the days of the year, it's in a completely different way, the way it is in the head of the year, than the way it comes out afterwards in the days of the year. Just like the vitality and energy of the entire body, it's not the same as when the vitality having to do with my toenail is still part of my brain and in my head, versus the way it comes out to be that minuscule amount of life force and energy that's in my toenail. In a similar vein, when we talk about Rosh Hashanah, including in it all the vitality the rest of the year, so it's not the same when it comes out into a certain day of the year as to when that vitality and energy was originally part of the head of the year. Therefore, to be able to transition from that state the way it was in the head to afterwards coming down to the rest of the year, one needs to have a process. V'yeshloima, the Rebbe says in the third line in the second paragraph, we could say, so it should be able to expand and be drawn down from the head of the year to the days of the year. There has to be the idea of constriction. In a similar vein, we find that the head stands upon the throat and the neck. The throat and the neck are, interestingly, narrower than the head, and definitely narrower than the trunk of the body. Chassidus refers to it as meitzar hagoren, the narrowness, the confines of the throat, which is in a way also a constricting and a limiting and a decreasing, if you will, of the energy that flows out of the head to the rest of the body. So in a similar vein, when we have the Rosh Hashanah energy, the way Rosh Hashanah includes all the energy and vitality for the entire year, to be able to come out to each individual day of the year, we need to have a symptom, we need to have a constriction. Just like it's similar to finding a constriction in place. That Chazal use an expression that tzimtzim shchinose ben shtei badei ha'arim b'kodesh kadoshim. Hashem constricted his shchina to fit between the two poles of the Aron and the Kodesh Kadoshim. The Aron was located between the two poles. Hashem Kaviyachol constricted himself and inserted himself, embedded himself in the Aron between those two poles. Misham, but that's only like a channel for the Shechina to afterwards come to the rest of the world. From there, from the Aron, from that location between the two poles that were on the Aron, came down and expanded from the Shechina, light and vitality for the entire world, To such a degree that the Shechina rests and becomes enclosed down here below, in such a way that the earth is entirely filled with its glory. So we have this type of transition, the Shechina coming down via the Tzimtzum, then spreading out. So he says, how do you move? And so it's understood. So they should be able to come out from the Shechina that's between the two poles of the Aron to the entire world. We need Tzimtzum. So that's a Tzimtzum in place. That's a constriction in place, where to go from the place and location of the Aron, which is located between the two poles of the Aron, to be able to expand to the rest of the world, you needed to have a tzimtzum between them. And so just like in place, there is a tzimtzum, in a similar vein, it's also concerning time, so that from that which is drawn down on Rosh Hashanah for the entire year, and then once it already came down, the vitality for the entire year in Rosh Hashanah, from there it has to now spread out day by day for the rest of the year. What comes down in the Rosh Hashanah? Hainu inyone avodah b'tamluchunde aleichem sheberosh Hashanah aleph b'tishrei. All the matters of the avodah of you shall make me a king over you, that's done, and that avodah is done on Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Tishrei. In a similar vein, the life force and vitality and the energy that the tree received from his Rosh Hashanah, which is the 15th of Shvat, for this, that transition from Rosh Hashanah on the 1st of Tishrei or the Rosh Hashanah on the 15th of Shvat, you need to have a tzimtzum, a constriction. By day tzimtzum zeh, efsher sheyumshachu v'yiskablu inyanim elu b'meshach kol yemei Hashanah. Through this constriction, it's possible that they should be drawn down and be received. These matters, meaning the matters of the energy and vitality that was part of the head throughout all the days of the year. Also in each individual day, the way it stands as an independent matter, as an independent day. It's incomparable the way the energy and vitality is in each individual day than the way it was part of the whole when it was in the head of the year. So the Rebbe goes on and connects it with the Maimer of Basar Legani that he spoke that year around Yud Shvat Tavshin Mem Hey. Last two lines on the page, to be able to understand in detail the idea of the head of the year for the tree. We have to preface initially what was explained previously in the Maimer Basar Legani of the Stalkus of the Frierdiker Rebbe, but the Maimer that the Rebbe spoke about in Tavshin Mem Hey. Sheisavas kol seder ishtalshlus mi'atz musai yisbarech, that the coming into being of the entire chain order of descent from Hashem's very essence, haisa ayidei tzimtzum, this took place through the tzimtzum, dafke, specifically through a tzimtzum. It's similar to the need for a tzimtzum that had to be such a come out from the head of the year to the rest of the days of the year. When this bar bezetz explained concerning this, the Isa Beitz Chaim has brought down Neitz Chaim. Initially, there was a supernal light that was pure, unadulterated, undefined, and it filled up all possibility for existence. There was no room for the existence of the worlds. And afterwards was the constriction until it became like a short line of divine revelation. And then came into being the existence of the worlds in their entirety. until this low world, that there's nothing lower than it. Now, this is often referred to in Kabbalah or in Chassidus as Tzimtzum Arishon, the first Tzimtzum. Despite that moniker, we still, and especially in that Maimer of Basel Lagani of that year, the Rebbe spoke at length that there's actually multiple Tzimtzumim before that. We're not going to go into this much, so don't worry about your Kabbalah hats at home. So he says, in addition to this, Commissioner Barasham, like it's explained over there, the Gam Lifnei Tzimtzum Zagufa, even before this Tzimtzum, that had to remove the great light that filled all possible space. In the very fact that we say that there was an existence of light that filled up the entire space, the entire possibility for room, until it has an association and a connection with worlds. In a way of negating it, that it negates the possibility of the existence of the world. That itself had to come about through many, many different constrictions and many different worlds. In other words, the Rebbe is saying that even to have something that interferes with the existence of the world, meaning it negatively impacts the world, needs to have some type of relationship to the world. I'll just give a simple example and then we'll go on. No one's going to say, I'd like to put this table over here, but I can't because there's an idea in the way. An idea occupies space in the brain. It doesn't occupy physical space. A table occupies physical space. It doesn't live on the same place like an idea. Therefore, an idea cannot challenge the place and the space for a table to be there. The very fact that we say that there had to be a removal of a certain light so that the world should exist means that this light has some type of relationship to the worlds, at least in a negative. To be able to create and to make even such a type of light that wouldn't allow for the existence of the world, there had to be many tzimtzumim as well beforehand. That's all that matters for the concept that we're trying to explain over here. Like to explain that length in the language, and the Rebbe enumerates the language of all the Rebbeim. And in addition to this, the Bechol Tzimtzum Gufi Yesh Kama Kama Protim. In every Tzimtzum, there's many details. Like it's explained at length in the notes of my father, the Levik, the Rebbe's father, to the Zohar at the beginning of Parshas Truma. The Bezohar Shem Isa Kama V'Kam L'Shoynesh Al Tzimtzum Echad. And the Zohar over there has brought down many different expressions for one Tzimtzum. So the Rebbe's father is explaining why does the Zohar use all these different descriptions about one Tzimtzum, because in truth, in one Tzimtzum, it includes multiple Tzimtzumim. He explains over there, every single expression that the Zohar uses to describe this seemingly same Tzimtzum is really indicating a separate Tzimtzum. Like it's explained over there in the Rebbe's father's notes in detail in the expression of Kabbalah. Now, in a more practical sense, why or what is the purpose of all these multiple tzimtzumim? Now, second paragraph on the page, the intention and purpose of all these multiple tzimtzumim is b'shvil Yisrael, for the sake of the Yid. Just like the creation of the worlds in general is for the sake of Yidin K'maimer, like the statement is Bereishis. Why does it say Bereishis, Beis Reishis? So it's saying B'shvil Yisrael Shenikru Reishis. Yidin are called by Hashem the first, the beginning. So for the sake of the Yidin, which are called the Reishis, Bora Lekimus Shemayim Sa'aretz, Hashem created the heavens and the earth. So when we talk about the creation of the heavens and the earth, we're not just talking about the creation of the physical heavens and earth, the physical sky and the physical earth, the physical universe. But we're talking about everything that went into play so that there should be able to be a physical world, which means all the different levels of Seder Ishtalshlus and all the different levels that had to lead to that, including all the different Tzimtzumim. Third line in the second paragraph, Al derech zeh moving gam b'negel Tzimtzumim, so too it's understood also concerning all the constrictions, adla tzimtzum rishon, until the first constriction, sha'koil hu b'shvil Yisrael, that all of it is for the sake of Yidden. V'zel bereishis b'shvil Yisrael, that's what it means. And Rashi brings it down a chumash, bereishis for the sake of the Yidden. Shereishis kol inyanim b'shvil Yisrael, that the beginning of all matters for the sake of the Yidden. Like explained in Tanya, all the multiple constrictions. It's for the love of the person down here below, that Hashem loved him so much, so he constricted himself so much to elevate him to him. There's an expression in Chazal that love causes the flesh to constrict and to squeeze. In a similar manner, Hashem Kaviyachol squeezed himself out of his love for us. The idea behind this is, like Baal Shem Tov explains in Keser Shem Tov, Shakadosh Baruch Hu also kama tzimtzumim derech kama oilmas, that Hashem made many constrictions via and through many worlds, kedei sheyeh chulu la'adam aydei avedasei achtas ma'kadosh Baruch Hu, so that a person through his service should be able to become united and one with Hashem. This means the goal and the purpose of all these constrictions is that the godly light should be able to be received down here below in the person down here below. To such a degree till it can affect the idea of oneness with Hashem. In other words, there's one level where the thing can be received. Another level is that even after being received, it becomes one with it. For example, if I pour a small amount of water, it can be received in a cup. If I pour too much water, it can't just splash out. It won't be received in the cup. But it doesn't mean that the water and the cup become one. So the same thing over here, we're talking about both aspects. That Hashem constricted himself so we should be able to receive his light, and even more so, we should be able to become one with his light. Like it's explained over there in Keser Shem Tov in detail about this. And even at greater length in the explanation of this statement that the Baal Shem Tov in the Mamorim of my Rabbeim, our leaders. More specifically, there's unique constrictions just specifically for the sake of the Yid. And in these tzimtzumim itself, there are many, many levels that had to be all for the sake of Yidden. This means the noise of in addition to the fact that he made many constrictions via many worlds. Then there are specific, unique constrictions that are for the sake of the Yidden, more so than we say about for the sake of for going through all the worlds. Like it's explained in the Svarim of the Mizrach Magid, in the beginning of the Mizrach Magid Svarim, that Hashem, metaphorically speaking, constricted his brilliance, his brightness. It's likened to a father that constricts his mind, and he speaks of minor matters, childish matters, for his young child. Like it's understood from the continuation of what the Mizrach Magid says over there. It's not just that the father is acting. The father is actually enjoying the childish activities of his young child. He gets very excited. His child built a building from from Lego, and he's like, wow, and he's really excited. He's not just saying it, because he's completely constricted himself and immersed himself in the mindset of the child. Also, in this relationship between the father and the child, we see many constrictions. First of all, there's the constriction for the sake of his child in general. And especially the constriction for a young child. Till he has an enjoyment from his childish actions. So just like we see that in the constrictions of a father and a child, so too, Valderach at top of the next page, move when it's understood. Gamba Nimshal also in the metaphor by Hashem. Though you are the fewest of all the nations, meaning we are small, we are minor, we are not like Atzilus, we're not like highest worlds. That's why Yidden are called a nar, a youth. Like it says, Ki Na'ar Yisrael, that the Yidden are youth. And it concludes, Ve'oy haveyu, and I loved him. Despite the fact that he's a youth, Umishum Zedavke, and specifically because he is a youth, Ve'oy haveyu, I loved him. Shakadosh Baruch Hu mitzamtzem atzmei b'shvil b'nai hakoten kaviyachol, that Hashem constricts himself for his small child, kaviyachol, u'ba'oifen da'ava dechekes abasar, in such a manner, like we said before, that the love squeezes and contracts the flesh. That is how Hashem contracts and squeezes himself for the sake of his child, of Am Yisrael. Until it affects the constriction in all matters of above. From Hashem's very essence, till it comes down through many constrictions, through many worlds, to the world of action, this low world, that there is no world lower than it, that the action is what's primary. In addition to this, that all the constrictions are for the sake of a Yid. Also, there's unique constrictions that are specific and unique for the Yid, not just so that they should be able to be the world. So in a similar vein, we have within ourselves many constrictions. In the also in the person himself, there are multiple constrictions. The atem krim adam. You, Klal Yisrael, the Chazal say, are called by the term adam. Why are we called adam? One, the reasons why it's unique to a Yid is like it says. The Navi says, Al Shem Adam Le'elyon, Adam Le'elyon, I am similar to above. So therefore, since a Yid that's called Adam, he's called Adam because he's similar to above. So just like above, there are many tzimtzumim, many constrictions. So too in a Yid, there's also many constrictions. Therefore, just like there's multiple constrictions above, so too there's multiple constrictions in the soul of a person. And for this reason, because there are multiple constrictions within a person himself, the understanding of this very topic, the multiple constrictions of above, it comes about through meditating in the individual details of the constrictions in the soul of a person. So one understands the details of the tzimtzumim above by using a human being's soul as a template and as a way to find an analogy for this. Skip the brackets to the next line. It says, for my flesh, I will perceive godliness, including the godliness of all these constrictions. So that should be able to be my perception of godliness in concerning the multiple constrictions above. It comes from my flesh. meaning from the Yid himself, the Atem Kriyim Adam Al Shem Ed Melelin, you are called an Adam because you are likened to above. And in the brackets we said that this is a necessity to understand that, because the meditation that a Yid has to have in Hashem's greatness has to also encompass knowing the details, not just knowing Hashem is great, but even knowing the greatness involving the different Tzimtzumim. Third paragraph on the page. Now we're going to bring back to the topic of Rosh Hashanah of the trees. We said that there also needs to be a constriction, that's what we started earlier, to get from Rosh Hashanah to the individual days. Whether we're talking about the Rosh Hashanah of the year or the Rosh Hashanah of the year of the trees, to go to transition from that big place to all the details for every single day, you need to have Tzimtzumim. So he says in the third paragraph on this page, V'zeu arba Rosh Hashanah mehem. This is the 4 heads of years. Rosh Hashanah le'il chol b'chamish also b'Shvat. The head of the year for the trees is in the 15th of Shvat. The Seder b'Torah hu gam Torah v'Irah. The order in Torah is also Torah. It's also a directive, meaning the fact that Rosh Hashanah for a tree is counted the last of the different Rosh Hashanahs that it says over there in the Mishnah is also a lesson. Meaning that it finishes off with that, because that's like the important thing that we need to work on. A person was likened to a tree, that the person is the tree of the field. The Koyal Bnei Yisrael, again, it's referring to the Jewish people, like it says, Atem Kriyim Adam. You, the Jewish people, are called by the title Adam. Al Shem Edam El, because you are likened to above. Bnei Yisrael Gufa Koyal Talmid Chacham Kedisum Septas. The idea that a Yid is likened to a tree, amongst Yidden themselves, who are the most tree-like, that's the level of Talmid Chachamim, because it says over there about you have to protect a fruit-bearing tree, and a Talmid Chacham is considered a tree that bears fruit. And how come? What's so special about a Talmid Chacham? Talmid Chacham yesh ben beza milas the Yisrael v'Torah. Talmid Chacham has in it both qualities, both the quality of a Yid and the quality of Torah. And that's included in what we said before, Bereishis bara Elikim, Beis Reishis. For 2 things are called Reishis, the Eibusha created the world. B'shvil Yisrael, that are called Reishis, the Hashem created the world. U'b'shvil HaTorah, for the sake of Torah, which is called Reishis, Hashem created the world. So in a Talmid Chacham, you have a combination of the 2 reasons for the world's creation. This idea of the special quality of being like a tree, whether it's the whole Klal Yisrael or whether it's Talmid Chachamim, there's that quality on the Rosh Hashanah of the trees, and then from the Rosh Hashanah of the trees, from that comes out afterward through the constriction throughout all the days of the year. There becomes the growth that's in the person, like we spoke about also in yesterday's Shiur. The message of the New Year of the trees is the idea of the growth and the sprouting that there's to be found in a tree. Meaning, spiritually, that means that a person goes up and increases in holiness in his service. And on a level of vegetation, of growing things, that's the level of midas, like it's explained in a different place. Why midas have to do with semeach? Because midas also grow from a minor, immature level to a mature level. Why is that so important, specifically to focus on the tree aspect that has to do with midas? Because the ultimate perfection of the avodah with our intellect in kedusha, he lost it love is when Mashiach comes. That has to do with the 3 lands of Keni, Knizi, v'Kadmoin. But now the main avodah is with our emotional attributes. That's the content of the idea of the Rosh Hashanah of the trees. This day of the 15th of Shvat is the head from which comes down the power for the service of a person in a way of growth and ascending in holiness in the avoida of his emotions. It should be recognizable that he's in a way of a person being the tree of the field. Adam Lashon Edm Aliyah, Adam is the word that I'm likened to above. So you should have that recognition and that growth. This power comes from the 15th of Shvat. The Rebbe concludes with a bracha by the last two lines on the page, by the avoida shebechinas semech b'shleimus, through the avoida of growing things b'shleimusa in its perfect state. Zoichim u'mekarvim mezarzim sagula mitzvah shleimu, we merit and we bring closer, and we make faster the true and complete redemption. Shnamar bada, concerning the redemption, it says v'nigash choirish b'koitzer. It says that the one who's plowing the field will meet up with the one that's harvesting the field. In other words, miraculously, the fields will grow so quickly that before the one that is plowing the field even finishes plowing the entire plot of land that he's plowing, he'll already meet the one that's already harvesting the field. Hainu, this means, sheyiyeh inyan hatzmicha, there'll be the idea of growth, bizrizus gedoyli yoser, and an unbelievable speed. Ba'ofen dachishana, in a way that I will speed it up, like it says about the Gula. Beprotius, and more specifically, hareza nimshach aydei maseinu, over the seinu, ba'ofen shel zrizus, it comes down through our actions and service in a way of speed. In other words, if we want the Geula to be in a way of speed, we have to do our avoid in a way of speed. Like it's explained at length, the advantage and quality of the idea of alacrity and speed in the letter of the Alter Rebbe. That is explained over there. The Alter Rebbe explains about that why is it held for all generations such a great merit that Avram Avinu was willing to sacrifice his only son. Even throughout the generations gave up their lives for Hashem. What was special about Avram, and the Alter Rebbe points out the specialness of Avram was Vayashkim Avram Baboiker, that Avram got up early. In other words, he sped to do Hashem's will. And that is the reason why the merit of Avram and the Akedah stood us in good stead and is always brought up as a merit for all time. And the Rebbe says, and the Alter Rebbe uses all other types of expressions of how powerful the schus of the Akedah is. All of the above should bring the true and complete redemption in a way that I will speed it up. Behold, will go with the clouds of heaven, that the clouds of heaven fly quickly across the heavens. And an action which that is primary by in this physical world, or in the way of mamash, mishush. Mamash is also related to the word touching. It's tangible. You can touch it with your hands. And the glory of Hashem will be revealed, and all flesh will see together. We won't even need to use our eyes to see it. It says all flesh will see, meaning the flesh itself will see and sense the power of the doer in the things that were made. Meaning we'll see the power of Hashem in the world through our very flesh, without the need for our eyes. Speedily in our days, through speeding up of the true and complete redemption, and in our time.